Chavez in Venezuela, who is every day literally giving the U.S. a big raspberry, and saying that he'll sell oil to China. He's doing big deals with China, and he's being very successful. And I've been saying clearly for a long time that geography is going to determine what this post-petroleum world is going to look like. South America seems to be way ahead of the rest of the world in localizing itself into a regional, equitable, honest, self-sustaining alliance, a Bolivarian alliance. And Hugo Chavez, and I hope to visit Venezuela soon, possibly to interview Hugo Chavez. But we see the nations of the world aligning against the United States and challenging. And basically, China made a $200 billion investment in Iran, which makes it clear now that if the U.S. were to be foolish enough, and it will not, I really don't think the U.S. is going to invade Iran, that we would be attacking $200 billion in Chinese assets. So you can obviously add 2 plus 2 and say that's nuclear war. Well, of course it is. And India is throwing money into Iran, et cetera, et cetera. Even Europe is throwing money into Iran. So the U.S. is becoming an empire in serious decline. And, of course, it should come as no surprise. We have watched empires rise and fall throughout the course of human history.
Right, and it's kind of right on schedule in terms of how long empires last. I remember noticing that was in India at a light show talking about, well, there was this sultan or this king, whatever, and this happened, and somebody else took over, and it just went on, and I kind of got the impermanence of empire. And I would like to remind people that I'm speaking with Mike Ruppert, the author of Crossing the Rubicon, The Decline of the American Empire at the End of the Age of Oil, and also the editor, publisher from thewilderness.com.
That's me. That's me.
Yeah. So here we are at Soulfest, and you were talking about sustainability. That's what this Soulfest is all about, which is very heartening. I mean, there's so many wonderful things that we can be doing. And when you were talking earlier about transportation, Mike, I wanted to say that, people think, they just think they'll get some other kind of car, and they just think that that's all there is, but they don't think about how much oil is involved in everything in the industrialized world, including the manufacturing. Yes. And the whole thing about preparing is you can't wait till it comes, because then to run out and get your solar panels, because when there's not enough oil to manufacture the solar panels, well, I don't know, I guess you get electricity from solar, but you get my drift, say more.
Well, that's what I've been fighting more than anything else to get people to incorporate into their way of thinking, is a term called net energy. People automatically assume that a hybrid, for example, will just appear out of nowhere, and they don't even think about how much energy goes into making the hybrid. It takes 12 to 15% of all the oil that a car will ever consume, even a hybrid, to make the vehicle. You got to mine the ore, drive it by oil to someplace, melt the ore, you got to move it down, all plastic is made out of oil, which means that for a Toyota Prius or a Honda hybrid or whatever, it's going to take about 2,500 gallons of oil to make that vehicle. Now, with 700 million internal combustion powered vehicles, that's about 1.5, 1.6 trillion with a T gallons of gasoline if we were to replace the world's whole fleet. There are 7 gallons of gasoline in every tire. People don't think about this, what the cost is. And that doesn't account for the energy to build the factories, to build the cars.
Right. I remember hearing how much oil it took to make one computer chip and one computer. Anyway, these things are huge, yes. Just huge. All these things that we take for granted, they're all based on oil.
Absolutely. And people need to start thinking in terms of net energy because, of course, psychologically, everybody wants a quick and easy answer. There is no complete answer to peak oil. There is no solution. And what's scary to me is now we see Chevron and Mobil on their websites publicly acknowledging peak oil. Now, 2 years ago, they didn't do that in their financial reports, in their quarterly filings, their 10Ks and 14Qs. They said we have plenty of reserves. Now they're saying, well, then no, we're going to run out, and maybe 3 to 5 years we'll hit peak. Well, that means we're probably at peak now, and they know that. And if they're saying that really that really scares me. But so now peak oil can no longer be postponed or evaded. And it's going to get real tough, and people have to disabuse themselves of any fanciful notions because now, if you make the wrong guess based upon denial or a psychological need, it may cost you your life.
Did you hear that, folks?
That's right. I mean, this is serious. I'm all about saving lives, and saving lives is about sustainability. One of the things that has made me so mad, and one of my new biggest villains in the world, is Monsanto. I mean, what they've done with agribiz and patenting seeds, they've just patented a pig, Terminator seeds. See, this is why I always say until you change the way money works, you can't change anything else. But we have been robbed of the American people's knowledge of farming. 2 generations ago, everybody knew how to farm. Now, we know how to buy groceries. That's what we know how to do. And we have pavement, we have depleted topsoil and everything else. And when push comes to shove, it's going to be the ability to grow and procure food and fresh water and everything else that's going to determine who lives and who dies. And we're not far from that point now.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree. I started out on a farm, and I've been recently wanting to go back to one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, the industrial age has just been such a little blip in the history of humans on the planet. So it's, people have been getting along for a long time. But then all this oil has allowed all this population to outgrow the carrying capacity.
Not only that, of course, now we're seeing overwhelming evidence of climate collapse. We just have a new book that I've got for sale on our website called Climate Crash, which is elegantly understated because it's so terrifying. It had to be. We see the Greenland ice sheet melting, in measures of feet per year. We see the sea levels rising all around England. It's a very interesting thing that on July the 7th, the day of the London bombings, had those bombings not taken place, the biggest story in the world would have been Blair breaks with Bush on global warming at G8. And the British know what's coming. Their islands are sinking.
Mm-hmm. And islands are sinking all over the world, of course.
That's exactly right. And then the story came out just about a week ago that it's been acknowledged that the Russian tundra is thawing out. And what that's doing is releasing, and this is a quote from the BBC, billions, with a B, of tons of methane directly into the atmosphere because the natural gas was frozen under the tundra. And now it's melting. Now methane is 20 times more deadly a greenhouse gas than is carbon dioxide. And billions of tons, and we're already in the middle of global warming, that could be well past the tipping point. And what the books like Climate Crash and The Real Science now shows is that climate changes, abrupt climate changes, like ice ages, have taken place historically in less than a year's time. They can happen that quickly.
I think they can happen instantly, right? Because they're those dinosaurs with the undigested food frozen.
Or woolly mammoths, yeah. Yes, and that's true. And this is why the record from the Greenland ice sheet, which gives perfect ice core samples, and that's a global thing. It didn't just happen in Greenland. Greenland just measured what was happening on a global scale. So we are precariously close to a whole raft of life-threatening situations. And, of course, when somebody's life is in danger, thinking as a policeman, as I was trained so many years ago, when somebody's life is in danger, you don't think about a historical debate or a legal action or something else having to do with 9/11. You think about saving people's lives, and that's what I'm focused on.
Yeah. I wonder how you deal with your fear. I'm so struck. Well, I have my own fear, too, for sure. And I deal with it, and it goes away, and then it comes back, and I deal with it again. And there's so much of the denial, which is really a big issue because people don't prepare. Well, as you said earlier, it's a matter of life and death. Right. So how do you deal with that with all this information?
Well, I should have been dead a long time ago. I have avoided death many times in my life. I've been shot at twice when I was whistleblowing on the CIA dealing drugs. I've had a couple of close near-death experiences, so every day I have now is gravy, and the only day that I ever have that I ever have to work on anything is today. Today, I have now. That's it.
So you really can do that?
Yeah, I can, and I have to in order to be effective. I mean, of course, there are times when it gets to you, when it gets heavy, and then you just take some little time out to play and go be frivolous, act the Three Stooges, whatever you have to do, and that gives you some balance back. Because we're not alone. There is a reality greater than mankind, and whether you call it nature or God, in whatever form you understand it, there is a power greater than us, and it's accessible. And there was a great thinker, and I forget who it was. It was somebody from probably the Renaissance or later, who said, even if you told me there was only a 1 in 1,000 chance that things might turn out okay, it's that keeps me showing up every day. And it's not about, for me, I don't look at it as saving 6.5 billion lives. I look at it as saving the lives that I can touch, and that's it. And that's all I worry about.
Yeah. It's really changed my perspective, I'll tell you. I mean, since I met you, my perspective has changed about a lot of things.
I do that to a lot of people. Yeah, I know. I have that effect on people.
Yeah. Well, it's wonderful, and you're brave, and it's really important to speak the truth as we know it, and a lot of people don't have the courage. So, Mike Ruppert, you do.
Well, thank you. And, it's great to be here at Soulfest. We talk about these heavy, life-threatening things, but yet we get to walk out here and hear some world-class music, have a party, eat some great food, and that's what it's all about. We have to keep our balance facing everything, Life will go on. The human race may not go on. Life will always go on. In 4.5 billion years of Earth's history, no matter what happened, life has always survived. And I'm not egotistical enough to think that my wisdom or anything else needs to survive.
Uh-huh. Yeah, a lot of people talk about saving the planet. I say we better save ourselves or whatever, save the humans. The planet's going to be around.
It is time to start building lifeboats, absolutely. And nobody's going to build them for us. Lifeboats.
I want to ask you something. You said about as we just said like a minute or two, you earlier said about the United States having something to do with climate change. Could you just say a little bit more about that?
Well, the United States government, through its, of course, it's rejected Kyoto, and it's way too late for Kyoto to make any difference. Good science says that, we're past the tipping point, but the U.S. government's economic and military policies have continued to encourage rampant consumption, overconsumption of hydrocarbon energy, overproduction of greenhouse gases. And, of course, our military is probably not helping too much with all of the oil that we burn. But the U.S. government has look, we're 5% of the world's population consuming 25% of the world's energy. And that's how you get greenhouse gases. You burn hydrocarbon fuel. So, and that has been abused. It's been encouraged. Dick Cheney and George Bush said the American way of life is not negotiable, and I can guarantee you that Mother Nature is laughing her ass off.
Well, and what do you think about the police state that seems to be planned and is already happening for some people, and so many things that can't really, do you think that the end of oil is going in economic collapse is going to exchange these things, or is it going to kind of slow them down or stop them or make them worse? Well,
I look at the numbers strictly because I was trained in some of this stuff with the Los Angeles Police Department, even when I interned in the chief's office way back in 1970, 71. Is that if you do a manpower analysis, the U.S. government does not have the manpower to impose a police state in this country in terms of the way people think about it. What the U.S. government probably has the power to do, and this is clearly spelled out in their priorities for Homeland Security and a number of other pieces of legislation, is to protect their critical infrastructure, to protect their computers, their communications systems, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that aside from maybe the necessity of quarantining or clamping down on one or two small cities, they don't have the manpower beyond that. So I think ultimately they're going to be forced to a position of letting the rest of this country just fall to pieces, which is another argument, I think, for why people should really be looking to sustainability and localization. Because, there ain't going to be no Santa Claus or Tooth Fairy coming to bail us out.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Mike Ruppert, author of Crossing the Rubicon, The Decline of the American Empire at the End of the Age of Oil, publisher of FromTheWilderness.com website, and many, many, many other things. And thank you so much for this interview. I'm so glad you could squeeze it in up here at Soulfest.
So we've been doing this for 4 years. Let's do it for 4 more.
That's fine with me. Stay well, Mike.
Bye-bye.
I'm Sue Supriano. Thanks for listening. To hear other programs produced by Sue Supriano, go to my website, www.suesupriano.com. And Sue Supriano is spelled SUESUPRIANO.